1 minute to air. The live stream has started.
Good evening. We are going to call the meeting to order, and I'm immediately calling a recess until we reach quorum.
No, please don't. Now we have quorum. Yeah, you're good. You're in the right spot.
Good evening. Welcome to the Durham Planning Commission. The members of the Durham Planning Commission are appointed by the City Council and County Board of Commissioners to make recommendations to the elected officials. We emphasize that the elected officials have the final say on any issue before us tonight. While this meeting is being conducted in person, it also is accessible using the Zoom virtual platform. In the virtual meeting platform, public participants do not have the ability to talk or be seen on video by default. In order to maintain meeting decorum and a discernible record of the meeting, the chat function has been disabled. For those attending in person, if you plan to speak on an agenda item tonight, please go to the left side, to that table, and sign up to speak. When speaking, please state your name and your address clearly when you come to the podium. Please speak directly into the microphone. If you are attending the meeting virtually, you will be given the opportunity to speak at the appropriate time. If you have pre-registered, your name will be called so you can make your comments just like an in-person public hearing. You may also call in during the meeting tonight by dialing 1-301-715-8592. If you call in during the meeting, you will need to wait until a particular public hearing you are interested in starts. After all of the pre-registered speakers have shared their comments, I will ask if there is anyone else wishing to speak. At that point, you will need to digitally raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone. and when recognized, please state your name and your address before making comments. The applicant has a total of 10 minutes for a presentation. Each speaker after the applicant has 2 minutes to speak. Commissioners, I ask that you limit your comments for Q&A to 5 minutes and only be called upon a second time to speak after all commissioners have chosen to speak for the first time. Commissioners, as a reminder, after the public hearing is closed, you obtain the floor by being recognized by the chair. Commission members, please remember, you share this time with your fellow commissioners. Keep your comments and questions pithy, and please don't repeat topics that have already been discussed or questioned. The time to make public statements is before the motion is made. Once a motion is on the floor, and further discussion regarding that motion must come after a second. All motions are stated in the affirmative, so if a motion fails or ties, the recommendation is for denial. Commissioners, if you are not ready to move forward with a case, please indicate as such when questioned. Finally, I ask that everyone here and on Zoom, the commission members, the staff, the public, to conduct themselves in a courteous and respectful manner. If someone fails to act in that manner, the chair will ask the offending person or persons to be muted on the Zoom or leave the gallery until such time they regain personal control. If decorum fails to be restored, the chair will recess the meeting until a genuine commitment to act respectfully and courteous is observed. Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Chair Cameron.
Here.
Vice Chair Shigaris.
Here.
Commissioner Gravesmans.
Here.
Commissioner Durham.
Here.
Commissioner Kopak.
Here.
Commissioner Cease.
Here.
Commissioner Valentine. Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Wauk.
Here.
Commissioner Young. Thank you. And for the record, Commissioners McIver, Johnson, and Cutright have all asked for excused absences.
Thank you. We do have an established quorum. There are no adjustments to the agenda. Item number 4 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes and consistency statements. Do we have a motion to approve from the May 14th meeting?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cease and seconded by Commissioner Kopak to approve the minutes and the consistency statements from May 14th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We will now move into the public hearing text amendment. TC2400001 Omnibus 19. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes, before the staff report, Aaron Kane with the Planning Department. I'd like to just state for the record that all Planning Department hearing items have been advertised and noticed in accordance with state and local laws, and all affidavits of all notices are on file in the Planning Department.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Robin Schultz. I am a senior planner / arborist within the Planning Department. I am here tonight to present on TC2400001 Omnibus 19. So, as a reminder, an omnibus consists of minor technical changes to the ordinance. These should not include large policy initiatives. So within Omnibus 19, the changes can be divided into roughly 3 categories. The first of which being changes related to the passage of new state legislation. The second being corrections to incongruencies within the ordinance after the passage of SCAD. And lastly, corrections of other minor inconsistencies within the text. So first up, just to briefly mention some of the SCAD corrections, there were parts of the ordinance that mentioned required parking. We removed those. We corrected the density requirement in C-in. SCAD created a situation in which you had to have exactly 8 units per acre. So we changed that. We clarified that exceeding 20 ADUs requires a site plan, and clarified that SCAD did not remove the required project boundary buffers when mass grading sites. So some of the state legislation, notification requirements in accordance with state statute, essentially doing all the public notifications for street renamings that we do for everything else, which is to say they're published, posted, and mailed. We also have removed design regulations for anything included within the residential building code. State law also changed the building code to include tri and quadplexes. And also we removed any ordinance standard which conflicted with NCDEQ. Specifically, they are the only ones who can permit off-site wastewater systems. Some other changes that we made, there were 2 definitions of lot width. We corrected that to just 1. The annual reporting period for the comprehensive plan was changed from 1 year to 2 years, which was what was originally agreed on. The floodplain administrator switched to the planning director, as Sarah Young is the one who has been administering it through the minor engineering work group. And then we updated some of the flag and signage standards. I did want to add that we had 2 clarifying additions within the definition of affordable housing, which were added as a request by the JCCPC after a staff presentation. 2 other small additions. Staff met with Habitat for Humanity, who proposed 2 additional changes to the grading setbacks. One of which is that for sites which are not being mass graded, which is to say grading less than 4 acres, the grading setback does not apply along the street frontage, but it does apply for the other boundaries of the development. Additionally, there is an allowance for 2 feet encroachment into the grading setback in order to accommodate positive drainage away from the foundation of any structure. This concludes staff presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have anyone that would like to speak on this? Do we have anybody sign up to speak, Aaron? No. Anyone on the Zoom wishing to speak? Yes, Mimi Kessler. Go ahead. You muted yourself. You were unmuted. All right, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Mimi Kessler. As some of you know, I refer to these omnibus things as the ominous text amendments. And I sent you an email today with some pictures because I am very concerned about the whole issue of stormwater runoff and the unintended consequences of it being that the downspouts are directed to pervious surfaces, and I get that, except that then it runs off to other places, and I sent you some pictures of a specific incident of that, and that was with EHC. So that, in combination with the change for the number of ADUs, you have to have 21 ADUs in order to have a site or require a site plan. That's concerning to me because that's like a whole little subdivision. And again, I don't know that there is sufficient attention being paid to how development impacts surrounding properties with respect to stormwater. And one of the paragraphs in it had to do with downspouts, and I request that you ask for a change in that such that it is then restated as being stormwater from any new dwelling constructed must be directed to pervious surfaces and contained on the lot where the unit is built, or to stormwater handling construction to address the combined stormwater from a complex of homes or ADUs. If this is not done proactively and causes harm, the developer slash builder will quickly remedy the problem at his or her expense.
Ms. Kessler, your time is up. Thank you. Does staff want to respond to that?
Sure. I guess first, so SCAD is where the 20 ADUs came from. So it was listed as 20 in one part of the ordinance and 10 in the other. So our thinking is that we are not trying to alter SCAD through this process. This is supposed to be a minor amendment, which makes technical changes. So that was already allowed through SCAD. We're just making sure that it's consistent. And just as one clarifying point, they do still have to be associated with a civic use. They can't just be a private ADU subdivision built without a site plan, excuse me. As far as the downspouts go, that is a larger question to be handled, I think, during the UDO rewrite, since it's shifting how stormwater is handled within infill development. This is going to be a larger policy shift, which needs, formal engagement, coordination with stormwater, things of that nature. So that is how staff would respond to those claims if I didn't miss one.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this from the public? Seeing none and hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing now, and we are now open for commissioner discussion and questions. Commissioner Cease.
Thank you. Just a question about some of the changes, and I guess I may be confused by things that are in green and things that are in red and things that are in green struck out, things that are in red struck out. So the track changes I'm a little confused about. Can you just clarify what's represented?
Yeah, so I think that when that was sort of created, it's not supposed to be multiple colors. I don't know what happened with that, but essentially anything that's being struck out is being removed. Anything that is in a different color than black is being added.
Okay.
There is no differentiation between green and red.
Okay. A question on ADUs. There, in the existing ordinances, a consideration of an ADU located in the side yard, as long as it doesn't project forward more than 25% of the depth of the primary structure. That image is being removed according to the text. I didn't hear any discussion about things like setbacks or other than the grading.
Which section are you referring to?
This is 5.4.2B. Maybe another way of saying it is, are there changes being adopted through this that alter the dimensional flexibility that was introduced for ADUs through the original approval of SCAD?
So no, this should not affect anything that was approved through SCAD. Do you remember why that was? So some of these were proposed by DSC staff who work with this. I don't know off the top of my head for this specific, but let me look into it and I can get back with you.
Okay. That's all.
That's it. Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Kopak?
Yeah, I'll just comment and just give appreciation for the community comment. We've heard on multiple occasions concerns around stormwater runoff, and it seems something worth keeping in mind as we enter into the UDO rewrite.
Thank you. Anyone else? Are we ready to move this forward? Yes.
I'll just say that I'm not, but I'm happy to vote no on it, but I don't think we should be voting on something that is unclear. So,
Okay.
What was that?
I mean, there's changes that are proposed here, and I'm not following either the origin of the change or I didn't hear any discussion of how ADU positioning on the lot is impacted by these changes, but that's marked up in colors. There's a graphic that's in our ordinance, and I mean, that seems pretty unclear.
Can staff shed some more light, or no?
Bodobrinsky, Planning Department. The intent of the change was to coincide with the intent of how SCAD was adopted. I think that what the error was, and what I would have to go back and look at two different versions of the ordinance, was there was an inconsistency between the side yard setback or the allowable location of an ADU that's an accessory structure or an accessory structure without an ADU, and the intent is to clarify and make that consistent. And the way that we are proposing it is the way that was consistent with the intent of SCAD, rather than sort of having that inconsistency. And it's more of a clarifying how it's already being enforced situation.
One more question.
Go ahead.
So does that mean that ADUs are allowed in the position that's indicated on that graphic?
Yeah. Yeah, because you bring it all the way up. Is it being removed? Yeah. Because the graph. Yes.
They are? That's all I have.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to move this case forward with a motion? Gary's not here, so somebody has to make the motion.
What's the number?
Madam Chair,
What's the case number?
Yeah.
Case number is TC2400001.
Madam
Here
Chair,
as it relates,
Oh.
you got it? Go ahead.
as it relates to TC2400001 Omnibus 19, would like to forward this to City Council and the County Board of Commissioners with a favorable recommendation. May we have the roll call vote? Oh, a second.
Second.
all right, it's been moved and seconded. It's been moved by Commissioner Shigaris and seconded by, or Vice Chair Shigaris and seconded by Commissioner Kopak to move TC 2400001 Omnibus 19 forward with a favorable recommendation. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron.
Yes.
Vice Chair Shigaris.
Yes.
Commissioner Graves-Manns.
Yes.
Commissioner Durham.
Yes.
Commissioner Kopak.
Yes.
Commissioner Cease.
No.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Wauk.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-1.
Thank you. We will now move into the public hearings, initial zoning map changes, and the first case is Z2300012 Bristlewood right-of-way.
Good
May we have the
evening,
staff
Chair-
report, please? Sorry, go ahead.
Apologies. Good evening, Chair Cameron, Vice Chair Shigaris, and Honorable Planning Commissioners. Just give Jamari a second to pull up the slides. Wonderful. Again, good evening, Brooke Roper, City County Planning Department. On the next slide, Sarah Van Every of McAdams proposes to change the zoning designation of 0.089 acres of right-of-way located adjacent to 344 Broach Road. The current zoning is Planned Development Residential 4.166 and Residential Suburban 20, county jurisdiction. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Planned Development Residential 4.166 and Residential Suburban 20, city jurisdiction, to bring 0.089 acres of right-of-way into the primary corporate limits. There's an associated annexation petition with this case. It is case BDG 23-00030. This is a direct translational zoning. This case has been spurred by a previous case on the eastern parcel adjacent to the right-of-way area. The legacy case was called Wesley Downs and was a consolidated annexation approved in March 2023 to rezone to Planned Development Residential 4.166 to facilitate the construction of up to 229 dwelling units consisting of a maximum of 115 single-family units and a minimum of 100 townhouse units. The Bristlewood right-of-way case tonight is a way to bring adjacent right-of-way into city limits. So more specifically, just go back one. Thank you. More specifically, for the Bristlewood Road culvert to be city maintained, this area of Bristlewood Road would need to be annexed. So this will be an access road for the previously approved Wesley Downs case. Moving on to the next slide, the existing zoning is Planned Development Residential 4.166 and Residential Suburban 20. The site is surrounded by Residential Suburban 20 and Residential Rural. The aerial map shows the general location of the project in eastern Durham. And moving on, the annexation map, the area is not contiguous to primary corporate limits, but is contiguous to a city satellite area. And finally, the proposal would change the zoning designation from county to city and bring that 0.089 acres of right-of-way into primary corporate limits. Annexation of right-of-way into Durham city limits does not automatically trigger the city taking over maintenance of the roadway. So a separate petition by the applicant for the city to take over maintenance of that right-of-way segment can occur after the area is annexed into city limits. The applicant will be required to bring the right-of-way up to city standards before it can be accepted for maintenance by the city. The proposal is consistent with the applicable policies of the new comprehensive plan. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. At this time, the chair, thank you. The chair is opening the public hearing. May we have the applicant come forward, please?
Good evening, Chair Cameron, Vice Chair Shigaris, and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Nell Ghosh. I'm an attorney at the Morningstar Law Group at 700 West Main Street in Durham. I want to thank Ms. Roper for the presentation about this right-of-way annexation. It's a little bit of an unusual case, but I think the best way to describe this is this came up at site plan. I wouldn't even necessarily say this was missed at the time of rezoning. By the time of site plan, it became clear that in order to, let's say, bridge this gap on Bristlewood, there would be a culvert required for that. That culvert is not something that NCDOT wants to maintain, and it is something that is otherwise required by the city. So that is what necessitated the need for annexation in this case. And it's essentially a cleanup item to get that city-required infrastructure, the culvert, into the city. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone present that will like to speak on this case? Is there anyone on the Zoom that would like to speak on this case? One more time, anyone present or anyone on the Zoom that would like to speak? All right, I am now closing the public hearing, and we're now open to commissioner discussion and questions. Any questions? No questions. Are we ready to move this case forward? If so, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I would like to move case Z2300047A, Bristlewood right-of-way to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Gorham and seconded by Commissioner Williams to move case Z2300047A, Bristlewood right-of-way forward to the City Council with a favorable recommendation. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shigaris,
Yes.
Commissioner Graves-Manns,
Yes.
Commissioner Durham,
Yes.
Commissioner Kopak,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Wauk.
Yes.
The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Next up, we have case Z2300048A, Yates right-of-way. May we have the staff report, please?
Good evening, all. Sarah Long of City County Planning, and I will be presenting on Z2300048A, Yates right-of-way. Similar to the previous case, Sarah Van Every of McAdams proposes to change the zoning designation of 0.23 acres of right-of-way of Yates Road. The current zoning is residential suburban 20, county jurisdiction, and the applicant proposes to change the designation to residential suburban 20, city jurisdiction, to bring in the 0.239 acres of right-of-way into the primary corporate limits. There's an associated annexation petition associated with this case, and that case number is BDG 23-00031. So in order for Yates Road, which is an access point for the previously approved Mica Ridge development, to be maintained by the city, the entirety of the road connecting of South Mineral Springs Road needs to be in the city. As you can see here in the red hash, the existing zoning is residential suburban 20 county jurisdiction, and the site is surrounded by residential 20 and PDR zoning. And the aerial map shows the general location of the project in southeast Durham. The area to be annexed is contiguous to the primary corporate limits. And finally, this proposal would change the zoning designation from county to city and bring 0.239 acres of right-of-way into the primary corporate limits. The annexation of the right-of-way into the city of Durham limits does not automatically trigger the city taking over maintenance of the roadway, so a separate petition by the applicant for the city to take over the maintenance of the right-of-way can occur after the area is annexed into the city limits. The applicant will be required to bring the right-of-way up to city standards before it can be accepted for maintenance by the city. This proposal is consistent with the applicable policies of the new comprehensive plan. Thank you, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you. At this time, the chair is opening the public hearing. May we have the applicant?
I'm back. So this item is very similar to the previous case. This is simply annexing right-of-way. To be honest with you, I don't really understand how this one was missed at all. I mean, the last one I think is a little bit more explainable, if that makes sense. But this one was shown on the development plan, and I guess the legal description didn't cover it, so we're just back to fix that annexation, but really same type of deal. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone present that would like to speak on this case? Is there anyone on the Zoom that would like to speak on this case? Anyone present or on the Zoom that would like to speak on this case? All right, hearing nothing, I will close the public hearing now, and we are now open up for commissioner discussion and questions. Anything from anyone? Nope. May I have a motion to move this case forward? Training ground tonight, love it.
I recommend case number Z2300048A hyphen BDG 2300031 to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Graves-Mann and seconded by Commissioner Williams to move case Z2300048A BDG 2300031 Yates right-of-way forward to the City Council with a favorable recommendation. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron.
Yes.
Vice Chair Shigaris.
Yes.
Commissioner Graves-Manns. Commissioner Durham.
Yes.
Commissioner Kopak.
Yes.
Commissioner Cease.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Wauck.
Yes.
The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. We are now moving on to case Z2300027A-BDG 2300017 Parmer Edge. May we have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Brooke Roper, City County Planning Department. As Jamar is pulling up the slides, I'm moving on to the second slide. Kelsey Westwood of Kimley Horn proposes to change the zoning designation of 16 parcels of land totaling 183.169 acres and generally bounded by Angier Avenue, Glover Road, and the Durham Freeway and Ellis Road. The current zoning is industrial light and residential rural county jurisdiction and would not change if annexed. The properties are currently designated general industrial and mixed-use neighborhood on the place type map. There is an associated annexation petition with this case, BDG 23 0017. As this is a direct translational zoning, no commitments may be proffered through a development plan to further consistency with the place type designations. The existing zoning is industrial light and residential rural. The site is surrounded by residential suburban 20, residential rural, and commercial general and industrial light zoning. The aerial map shows the general location of the project just southeast of downtown Durham. The properties, moving on to the next slide, are currently designated general industrial and mixed-use neighborhood on the place type map. The industrial light zoning on the northern portion of the site is consistent with the general industrial place type. The residential, rural, and industrial light zoning on the southern portion of the site is generally consistent with the designated place type of mixed-use neighborhood, as both of these districts combined would allow for a mix of uses in this area. The area to be annexed is contiguous to the primary corporate limits. And finally, the proposal would allow access to city services, including water and sewer utilities, to facilitate the development of light industrial and single-family residential units on vacant property as permitted in the Unified Development Ordinance. This area is located in an area of high suitability score for the industrial development based on the 2020 Industrial Land Use Study. The proposal is consistent with all of the policies of the new comprehensive plan that apply to direct translational zonings, as found in Attachment E, Comprehensive Plan Consistency. The industrial light and residential rural zoning designations are, as I said before, generally consistent with the designated place type of general industrial and mixed-use neighborhood, though future development may not be consistent with specific place type policies. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
Thank you. At this time, the chair is opening the public hearing. May we have the applicant come forward, please?
Be with you in just a sec. Sorry, I'm taking a minute to move out. There we go. All right. Good evening, Vice Chair Cameron. Chair Cameron, Vice Chair Shigaris, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Patrick Biker. I live at 2614 Stewart Drive. Thank you, Brooke, for a fine staff report on this item. I'm an attorney with Morningstar Law Group, and I'm here tonight representing Parmer Edge for this annexation. Parmer Edge already has a proven track record in the Durham County section of Research Triangle Park. I remember very well 25 or 30 years ago when Glaxo was a major player in RTP, and unfortunately, those days are gone, but fortunately, Carlin Real Estate came along to revitalize what was once Durham County's #1 taxpayer back in the mid-1990s. And Scott Levitan, the CEO of Research Triangle Foundation, has recognized the importance of what Carlin accomplished in RTP. Furthermore, other RTP business leaders have given similar praise. And now I'd like to introduce Parmer Edge Vice President Elliot Brewer, who is here to share with the Planning Commission the ambitious strategy his team implemented to revitalize the former Glaxo campus in RTP. Elliot?
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. As Patrick mentioned, my name is Elliot Brewer. I'm a Vice President with Carlin Real Estate and Parmer Edge, and just wanted to touch briefly on the impact we had in Research Triangle Park. We purchased the GlaxoSmithKline campus as well as 2 additional vacant campuses in Research Triangle Park and invested ourselves just over $300 million to revitalize those campuses and bring tenants into the mix. At the height of our holdings in RTP, we had 2.4 million square feet of properties and over 700 acres. And as part of that, we brought in additional investments from those companies that came into the project and created thousands of jobs along the way, including recruiting Advanced Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Company to develop 750,000 square feet in RTP. And we're excited about the opportunity to continue making a positive economic impact in Durham. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you, Elliot, for sharing what Parmer Edge has already accomplished in Durham. In regards to this annexation we're discussing tonight, here's an aerial showing the 140 acres that has been zoned IL for several decades, along with 43 acres zoned RR just north of Glover Road, which is at the bottom of this slide. I want to highlight for members of the Planning Commission who may not have driven down Rigsby Road lately that the RR section is primarily to the west of a large 5 to 10 acre auto junkyard you see at the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. Now, I know with an annexation, some planning commissioners may be nervous about there being no proffers for bike and pedestrian infrastructure. To address that concern, the future development within this 183 acres will have to construct the Pettigrew Street extension, as shown on this slide. The cross-section that is required by our comprehensive transportation plan adopted in 2017 will include bike lanes and sidewalks on both sides of Pettigrew Street. In fact, for this section of Durham, between the Durham Freeway and the railroad tracks, the Pettigrew Street extension will be a vital piece of multimodal infrastructure. Next, I want to drill down a little bit deeper on one point in your staff report. On page 7 of the staff report, I appreciated the reference to the 2020 industrial land use study our planning department published about 4 years ago. I relied on this report many times since it has been published in order to advise companies that want to increase and improve Durham County's capacity for top quality economic development. It is important to review the 9 criteria that the Planning Department employed to evaluate industrial areas across all of Durham County, and you can see those 9 criteria at the top of this slide. I also think it is vital for the Planning Commission to know that this 2020 industrial land use study evaluated 179 sites located in Durham County. This site for this annexation is one of the top 5 sites in Durham County out of the 179 industrial areas that the Planning Department evaluated. And this site is very important for Durham's economic development when we look at new job opportunities for Durham residents that have been approved by the City Council over the past 3 years. When I first started working in Durham in 1994, our only solid opportunities for economic development were RTP and Trayburn Corporate Park. While I worked hard for industrial recruitment to RTP and Trayburn back in the 1990s, I realized that those good-paying jobs were pretty far away from the vast majority of Durham residents. To help remedy that problem over the past 3 years, it's been my privilege to work on developing job opportunities much closer to Durham residents. The first one was working with Scannell Properties for around 200 acres at the Junction Road and Farrell Road. That was about 200 acres, and that was approved in August of 2021. After that, we worked with Scannell Properties for an industrial park at Highway 55 and Hobson Road, about 235 acres, and that was approved in February of 2022. More recently, Welcome Venture Park up in North Durham near the Bragtown neighborhood was 160 acres, and that was approved in 2023. And now to fill in the gap that's here in the middle of Durham, the Parmer Edge is 140 acres, and again, it's scored 14 out of 15 on the industrial land use study, but 14 out of 14 representing the highest score any site obtained within that study. And so you can see that we're bringing jobs closer to where people live in Durham. And so in conclusion, the math is simple. You have a great developer, Parmer Edge. I'm sorry, when I did this PowerPoint in my office, it was perfect. You have a great developer, Parmer Edge. You have a great site, one of the top 5 out of 179, and you put that together and you have a great annexation. Our team will be happy to try to answer any questions you may have. We respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the chair is now opening the public, I was already, sorry, I said that already. Any community members present that would like to speak? We have Elliot already spoken, Patrick. Anyone else that has not signed up? Is there anyone on the Zoom? Anyone in the gallery that would like to speak? Anyone on the Zoom? Hearing none, the chair is closing the public hearing, and now we are open for commissioner discussion and questions. Go ahead.
I have a question for the applicant. The Welcome Venture Park project is going to require blasting.
Welcome.
It was presented to us, like, I don't know, a year ago or so, or whenever, and at that time it wasn't, but there was Commissioner Valentine, who actually is on this board and lives close to there, found out after the fact that it's going to negatively perhaps impact his home with the blasting that's required, that nothing was mentioned. Is this particular project going to require anything like that you know of?
We don't know at this point in time. At this point in time, it's hard to say.
Okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner?
Question for the applicant.
Yes, sir.
Can you describe more of what type of mixed use is going to be on the property when it comes down to the residential mix?
Well, there's 43 acres that's zoned RR. Parmer Edge is not a residential developer, so it's hard to say how that would be developed. It would probably be rezoned at a future date for higher density, since RR, my understanding is, requires single-family homes on 1-acre lots. But Parmer Edge develops life sciences, research and development, light manufacturing, those types of facilities. And so we're looking to develop the 140 acres. The RR had to be annexed in to provide access to Clever Road in accordance with the comprehensive transportation plan. So that'll maybe Elliott will go into residential development, but we'll probably partner with somebody else at a future date. It's very difficult. But again, that's the tail wagging the dog. Elliott wants to build, again, as he mentioned, continue the success they've had in RTP, but bring it closer to downtown Durham.
Commissioner Cease?
I guess my question is similar to the question Commissioner Gravesman raised, and that is about the RR. And you answered it in part with regards to the necessity of including that in the rezoning to allow the construction of the connection. There's still something a little odd about it, don't you think, to include a 43 acres zoned RR annexed into the city?
It was all owned by the Rand family, Commissioner C. So Elliott had no choice except to buy all the acreage that the Rand family owned. Most of it was owned IL. This portion was owned RR.
Well, that's the
way it's just the
that part is perfectly understandable, but the decision to just completely defer that is also understandable, perhaps strategically, but I think it would be not unanticipated to also have some additional kind of clarity or thought or explanation around what may unfold there. There are existing residences to the west of that stub, and it's hard to even call it a stub since it's 43 acres. So it's a sizable chunk of land, and I don't know of any other annexations that have been brought into the city limits and left as RR. Maybe that has been done. I don't know. Could you elaborate on any of the thought process there?
I don't know if you have anything to add.
The primary purpose for the annexation at this time is for us to have access to the city utilities and to tap into those. We've been working through the infrastructure plans for the site. As Patrick mentioned, it has been a farm since its existence as a property here in Durham. So really, until we can know that we have access to city utilities and get the infrastructure plan in place, we're not able to really put together a full development plan, but we will certainly address the different zonings on the site once we're able to feel more comfortable to do so.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Klopak?
Just to make sure I understand then, based on Commissioner Cease's questions, the 43 acres of RR will be annexed in as well, but that will not be able to be developed as RR in the future, and will have to come back for a rezoning before development occurs there?
No, that's not correct. It could be developed as RR, and in the city, they could have access to water and sewer at the RR densities if they chose to do so. In order to do anything more dense than what RR allows, they would need to rezone in the future.
And in terms of the access, I mean, we saw two requests this evening, applications this evening about rights of way. And so just so I understand, could it have been possible to come forward with a annexation request for the IL along with a right of way that did not include the 43 acres, or was it required to also include the 43 acres of RR in order to make this application feasible at all?
It was certainly my perspective that it was appropriate to annex the entirety of it so that we demonstrated how the access would connect to Glover. And in addition to the road connection, we also have to figure out the sewer connections if we're fortunate enough to be annexed. And that's going to be flowing towards Glover Road. So in terms of the sewer access and the street access, it both crosses the RR property.
Are there any other questions? Nope. Are we ready to move this case forward with the motion? May I have a motion, please?
Whose turn is it?
My turn on training night in the absence of Commissioner Cutright. Chair, as it relates to case Z2300027A, Parmer Edge, I move that we send this case forward with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kopak and seconded by Commissioner Gorham to move case Z2300027A-BDG 2300017 Palmer Edge forward with a favorable recommendation. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron.
Yes.
Vice Chair Shigaris.
No.
Commissioner Graves-Mans.
Yes.
Commissioner Durham.
Yes.
Commissioner Kopak.
No.
Commissioner Cease.
No.
Commissioner Williams.
No.
Commissioner Wauk.
No.
The motion fails 3-5.
Thank you. We now are moving into the public hearings for zoning map changes. We have case Z2300012 Sunrock Camden. May we have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Sarah Long with City County Planning. I'm presenting on case Z2300012 Sunrock Camden. Greg Bowler of Safeway LLC proposes to change the zoning designation of one portion of a parcel of land totaling 21.8 acres. The parcel is located at 1503 Camden Avenue on the north side of Camden Avenue and Light Street. Please note an amendment to the staff report. The existing parcel has a split zoning of both industrial and industrial light. The staff report only mentions the industrial light zone portion, and I can explain that a bit more on the next map. The proposal is to rezone the industrial light portion of the parcel to industrial zoning in order to match with the other portion of the parcel. The purpose of rezoning to industrial is to allow the construction of a new concrete plant. The property is currently designated general industrial and recreational open space on the place type map, though very little of the parcel that is proposed to change the zoning designation is within the residential and open space place type. The proposed industrial zoning is consistent with the designated place type. So as I mentioned before, the existing zoning is both industrial light and industrial. So you can see the industrial light is the light pink and the industrial is the dark purple. So the site is surrounded by industrial light and industrial zoning, and you can see that the proposal is calling for changing the entire site to industrial. The aerial map shows the general location of the project, which is just northeast of downtown Durham. The property is currently designated under the general industrial and recreation open space on the place type map. The designation is generally consistent with the designated place type. As you can see, the recreation open space is just a small portion on the northern portion of the parcel. So this proposal would allow all uses permitted in the industrial zoning district as shown in the UDO use table. The applicant has indicated the reason for the zoning map change request is for development of a concrete plant of up to 15,000 square feet on an undeveloped section of the parcel. As this is a general zoning request, neither a textual nor graphic development plan is provided. This proposal is consistent with 5 of the 6 applicable policies of the comprehensive plan. Thank you, staff, and the applicant are available for any of your questions.
Thank you. At this time, the chair is opening the public hearing. May we have the applicant come forward?
And good evening once again. I am Neil Ghosh, attorney at the Morningstar Law Group, 700 West Main Street. Here representing the applicant for this rezoning request. As has been mentioned by staff, and thank you, Ms. Long, for the presentation. As has been mentioned by staff, the intent here is to change the zoning of this parcel, which is currently split zoned. It currently is zoned both industrial and light industrial. And so the intent here is to change the light industrial portion to industrial. And as has been mentioned by staff, the intent here is to build a concrete plant on the portion of the property that is currently zoned light industrial. It's important to note that this piece of property has been used for years for asphalt and concrete production. There is an existing concrete plant on the site in the portion zoned industrial. What the owner hopes to do is to build a new plant, a more modern one, and take the existing one offline. So, you know, it's a upgrading their current plant, so to speak. So they, by building it in a new location on the site, they're able to maintain the current production while producing a new plant to for the ability to produce more, and then they can take the other one offline. We have looked at this site. I think when we originally submitted it, we submitted as with a development plan. However, there were some difficulties associated with that. This use is going to require ultimately, I believe, a major special use permit. So we're going to have to come back in front of the city council to get a major special use permit to implement the concrete plant. That was causing complications with respect to the development plan, so we decided to switch to a general use rezoning without a development plan. I didn't think that not having a development plan here would be that much of a detriment, given that I'm telling you that the use is going to be a concrete plant. What could you possibly want us to eliminate or prohibit from the property through a development plan, given that we're going for probably the most, or one of the most intense uses in the UDO. But that kind of tells you what's going on with this specific rezoning request. This is a very industrial area, not just across the train track. So this is adjacent to train tracks or railroad right of way. Just on the other side of it is another concrete or aggregate production facility active. This whole corridor is full of industrial uses, including fleet management for the city of Durham for some of their heavy equipment. So this is an appropriate location for industrial in my mind. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any community members in person that would like to speak? Do we have anyone on the Zoom that would like to speak? Hearing none, the chair is going to close the public hearing. We are now open for commissioner discussion and questions. Hearing, go ahead.
Yes, for the applicant, can you address the section or the request by the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee about the Roxborough Rail Trail that's adjacent to this parcel? And would there be any chance of you all proffering to help build this shared use path?
Well, to be honest with you, we do have concerns about that rail trail in this location. Again, this is an industrial area, and what is being suggested is that this is an active industrial site. I want to be real clear about that. So what is being suggested is that there's going to be a rail trail built next within that railroad corridor there, and they would like to see some sort of pedestrian or bicycle fixing facility essentially on this property. That's right at the driveway for this property. It's not a no, but it's not a yes either. I mean, there may be some incongruent uses. I mean, this is an active industrial site. They don't necessarily want to invite the general public to be close to or on this property. It's not safe. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's an active industrial site that is fenced in and that type of thing. The idea of just allowing the general public on here or inviting them to come to the site is kind of the opposite of what this site has been used for historically. So that's something that we would have to look into at the time of site plan, which again, the site plan for the concrete plant would have to come in front of the city council as part of the major special use permit for approval. So we're a long way from there, but it is something that we're aware of. We do have concerns, if just to be perfectly clear about that.
Yes, I don't know about this bike fixing station, but the part of the trail, if they're going to construct it, could perhaps be an alternative way for the employees of this site to commute to work, which would be part of, supporting the comprehensive plan.
There are many benefits to greenways and rail trails. I don't dispute that. I think it is tricky to figure out how to get those things to be incorporated with a pretty heavy industrial use. And again, that's something that we can look at, or will be looking at with, in conjunction with the site plan if we are rezoned.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Klopak?
Yeah, thank you. So I see that it is all industrial light. I'm curious if there's been interactions with the residents that live on Light Street that are right next to and have always been next to a concrete plant, right? And so this won't necessarily be a significant change, but the new plant would be right up against their property versus at a little bit of a distance. And so I'm curious, one, I was surprised to see residents there in what is actually an active industrial site. But, I see that there was an attempt to host a meeting but got no feedback. Like, were those residents solicited for their input about this proposal?
So this isn't the first project I've worked on in this area, and we did have 2 neighborhood meetings where we sent out notices, obviously to them, but just general, and no one came to either neighborhood meeting. I will say there are residentially zoned properties in that area. Some of them are not used residentially, but there are definitely some that are used residentially. I have not consulted with them directly, not for lack of trying.
They would have received notices.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
They've just not been responsive. But I mean, I think they're generally should be aware of the plans that Sunrock has for this site. And I think they probably are aware, well, no, and they're also aware of the other plant that I was mentioning on the other side of the train tracks. That's another project that I worked on. So yeah, I mean, we're aware of those residents, but they've not been terribly responsive or active with respect to this application or previous projects that I've worked on.
Are there any other questions? No. Are we ready to move this case forward? If so, may I have a motion to move this case forward?
I'd like to motion to move case number, is that right?
I'd like to move this.
I'd like to move this case forward to.
I'd like to move case Z2300012
I'd like to move case Z2300012 Sunrock Camden forward with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Commissioner Kopak to move case Z2300012 Sunrock Camden forward with a favorable recommendation. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron.
Yes.
Vice Chair Shigaris.
Yes.
Commissioner Graves-Manns.
Yes.
Commissioner Durham.
Yes.
Commissioner Kopak.
Yes.
Commissioner Cease.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Wauck.
Yes.
The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. At this time, we will have committee updates. Commissioner Cease.
Thank you. So we do have the committee that was formed for purposes of reviewing the changes that are underway, the proposed changes that are underway to the UDO. I wanted to ask Chair Cameron if I could also make some comments just in general about the composition of our commission. and maybe the membership, because there's been a lot of rollover. There's been a lot of change in the few years that I've been on the commission. I've been here a while, but several, I think, have been here longer. And I'm reflecting on the work that we've done in adopting the comprehensive plan, and I say we're just a part of it. Staff has carried the bulk of the effort around adopting the comprehensive plan, and elected officials and community members all participated extensively in creating that document. And I guess there are two things that kind of intersected here that I wanted to touch on. One is a vote that our city council took approving a project that our commission had voted unanimously to recommend denial. And I believe the vote was 10-0. And it was not a small project. It was a 200-acre project off of Virgil Road. And there was a lot of discussion about the positive benefits with regards to green elements or sustainability elements of native landscaping and things of that sort. I believe the initial proffer for DPS was $5,000 for that 200-acre project with 531 townhomes. I've asked staff just to confirm what changes may have been made on the fly at the council meeting. But one thing that wasn't changed was that it was still just 200 acres of single-family homes, and both attached and detached. The relevance of that to the comp plan is that that was a site that was designated for both a mixed-use residential and a mixed-use neighborhood. And so a change had to be adopted to the place types map to allow what was requested to be approved. One thing that was also changed is they increased the DPS public school contribution from $5,000 to $59,000. So that's $100 a unit. Anyway, we voted unanimously to recommend denial, and I think it was not so much about the details of 3% or 2% or 5% of affordable housing. It was about the fundamental difference between that proposal and what the comp plan calls for through the place type map, and not only through the place type map, but through the policies. And so a lot of work went on that, went into developing that comp plan. And I feel like there may be, clearly people leave volunteer boards for a lot of reasons that may or may not pertain to the work of the group. But people are also discouraged from serving on volunteer boards when their potential contributions are not recognized, or not influential, or not having kind of an impact on the community. Beyond that, I've noticed, by no means do I watch all the city council meetings, but I do tune in on occasion, or when someone identifies a set of discussion points that elected officials may be raising in a discussion of case. And there's been a bit of a tendency for the work of this commission to be diminished, in my view, and not only that, but to be just flat out called into question and really kind of attacked at an individual level. And I'll give you just two examples that I think are relevant. There was a discussion about our status as volunteers, which we all are. No one up here is compensated, even though other elected officials are. They receive some modest compensation, and that's not the point. But the point was saying that, well, the council elected officials have to be the experts, that the commissioners are not experts. Everyone on this commission is an expert at something, and there's a heck of a lot of expertise on this commission that aligns with the material, the topic that we're tasked with addressing each meeting. And that's evidenced in our applications, where either the county commissioners or the city elected officials have decided to appoint this respective set of individuals to the commission. And I'm just going to say that, there's expertise on this commission. Commissioner Williams is a real estate developer, real estate expert, longtime expert of Durham, having grown up here. Commissioner Valentine is expert at putting his ear to the ground and meeting with community members and understanding what the needs of this broader community are. Commissioner Durham is an expert. He's a civil engineer that manages millions of dollars of construction and development, highly complex physical changes, investments, public-private partnerships, and communities. Commissioner Kopak has corporate sustainability expertise and also is deeply intertwined with this community and understanding and seeking out input from the community members to understand what our community needs are. Commissioner McIver and myself both have civil engineering background. I can tell you I've generated the initial engineering site plans for thousands and thousands of units in about a dozen states and hundreds of units of affordable housing in North Carolina. I don't know if that makes me an expert, but I have some sense of the types of challenges and discussions, just as the others that I've referenced here have in terms of the conversations that come before us. Commissioner Graves-Mann just was named an Aspen Institute Fellow, recognized for his expertise in developing not just theoretical expertise, but in developing pathways for ownership of communities of color in real estate. And it's just a really notable accomplishment. People struggling with challenging issues that Durham and lots of other cities are tasked with representing. And our chair manages hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate assets for one of our public institutions. And it's completed 2 different development bond financing complex projects. So folks on this commission, Commissioner Cutright, not here this evening, commercial real estate broker, developer, corporate finance expertise. There is expertise on this commission that is germane to the topic that we're tasked with addressing. It's perfectly fine if the council opts not to adhere to our recommendations, and I suspect fully that there will be a lot of cases where they shouldn't, that things change before they get to the final vote, and that's perfectly understandable. But there is no need whatsoever to characterize the volunteer effort that's represented on this commission. Another comment that was made is, all the comments are the same that come from planning commissioners. It's like they don't even look at the cases. And I think all that is an indication that they don't read the comments, because there is an incredible amount of work and depth that goes into the comments that folks on this committee make, both in these meetings and in the written comments. So I appreciate the opportunity to make these comments, because I think it is important for members of our community, particularly folks who have been vested in creating the comprehensive plan, to recognize that it takes leadership and courage and a real willingness to dig into details to understand ways in which we as a community can actually achieve the aspirations that are identified in that comprehensive plan. So if this isn't the venue, this is going to be my last meeting, but before I will submit comments on tonight's cases, but I also want to point out 2 staff members who have been just extraordinary assets throughout the time that I've been on this commission, and that's Earlene Thomas and Grace Smith. Grace is not here tonight, but Earlene and Grace, through the comprehensive planning process, through the daily minutia of our emails back and forth, and the putting you on the spot here with questions, and managing I would say, with grace and a smile always on your respective faces, the challenging questions that come not just from us, but also from members of the community. You're a real gift to the community, and your service is much appreciated. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners would like to speak on this topic? Nothing? I would just like to say too, the most valuable commodity anybody has is time. And when we volunteer, we give our time. As the chair, you have to serve on the JCCP meeting. And I look around that room and I realize I'm the only one not paid. Everybody else is paid there. So to diminish anyone's participation is, I would just say, un-Durham-like. And we need to do better. On to new business. Any new business? Any staff announcements?
Yes, two staff announcements. First, and not because of the fine comments you made, Commissioner Cease, but we are making a switch in personnel that are attending. Grace Smith will no longer be attending meetings. We're doing some shifting of duties within the department, and Bo Dobrensky will be taking her spot here, but I think she's watching. I'm sure she appreciated the comments very much. Second, we do have a new member of the commission. I believe he's been sworn in, Malcolm Gregory. He could not be here this month, but is planning on being here next month. So please welcome him when he gets here, and we'll be working with him to get it oriented before next month's meeting.
Tell them welcome to the Thunderdome. All right. Anything else? Nothing else? Again, thank you, Commissioner Cease, for your comments and your courage. Nothing else comes before us. We are adjourned.